James Vanderbeek, okay? He is from Dawson's Creek. You know him, you love him. He came out for a Memorial Day post and he went off on TikTok, which is not a platform I frequent unless it's in the way of cringe or vamp and goth compilations on YouTube. Don't have TikTok. And he went on there and he was pulling his kid in a stroller backwards. It was very quiet. His audio quality is fantastic. You'll hear it in a second. And he basically said that the Democrats, by not holding a primary for JFK the 13th and Marianne Williamson, the crazy crystal lady, and Joe Biden, the guy who can't think or walk or anything, that they're doing a disservice. And he's right. So let's hear what James Vanderbeek had to say.
By the people, it's a democracy by them. For who? Big banks, big business, big tech, big pharma, big government, big whatever. I mean, what the hell? How is this a democracy? And how is anybody in the DNC right today going to post about thanking our troops and thanking the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our democracy and our way of freedom? Now, listen, I am grateful for them, but any member of the DNC who's going to think about posting that today, stop, think, and do your job before you start posting about how grateful you are. There are people out there who are willing to die to preserve democracy, because you are not preserving democracy right now. You're shoehorning your pick and forcing it on the rest of us. And don't tell me that the other candidates aren't serious, because one of them is polling at 7%. The other one is at 19%. That is a quarter of the vote who already thinks there's at the very least some debate about who ought to be president. If there's no debate, there's no democracy. No primary, no legitimate president. So thank you to all the troops. Thank you to the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our way of life, to preserve our democracy. Let's all do our part. We need a debate. How do we have a government? How do we have a democracy if we're letting a small little back room of people make all the important decisions for us? That's not a democracy, and it doesn't work, because y'all have been wrong about a lot these last couple of years in that back room. No debate, no democracy. And I could be wrong. That's the thing. I could be wrong about all this. I could be wrong about the guy being fit for the job. I could be wrong about the other people being right, being legitimate, being crazy. You know what would solve that? A debate. Have a debate. Happy Memorial Day.
What amazing audio James Vanderbeek has here. Am I right? Am I right, everybody? James Vanderbeek's audio is crystal clear here. He's speaking to you through, some sort of voice synthesizer that makes him sound like the coolest guy aware. How does he have this audio out in the middle of a forest or a country road, pulling his kids, sweating, walking backwards, and he's got better audio than most people? I have no idea. But if you were to watch this and he didn't cite any facts, you'd probably be like, this guy's literally just acting, right? And I would be too. I would say the same thing. He's just acting, and there's no reason to believe anything he said. There's no reason to believe that he knows what he's talking about, but he did cite some facts there. And I'm just trying to find what he did here, because it shows him, walking his kid. I don't know if they actually showed that in the Twitter version. There it is. I'll share this with you guys now. He's walking his kid in some sort of stroller. He's walking backwards, dropping facts on you guys in what looks to be, a three-wheeling racing machine that you would use as a kid, or maybe an adult who exercises a lot down a country road. Maybe it's in Dawson's Creek. I don't know. But he cited some statistics which shows he actually, at the very least, he checked the internet before he started speaking, which is something that you can't say for AOC, you can't say for Joe Biden, you can't say for Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris or other celebrities that might talk about politics. he actually checked the internet at the very least, which, goes a long way when you're trying to convince people. So he talked about these statistics on Real Clear Politics, I assume, but this is a good aggregate of the polling data where Joe Biden, if you look at the last one here for CNN, he is polling 60%, Kennedy had 20, and Williams had 8. You notice he bumped them up with his corrections on the screen. And then overall, in these two polling aggregates, I'll call them, or polling tabulations, he's a little below 60. Kennedy is at 16.8%. Crazy Marianne, who's selling you crystals and maybe some spices that she just bought at the dollar store and mixed them together or put them in another container, she's polling at 6.8. So woman who wants to steal and eat your children, 7%. Raspy voice guy who seems really good, but also is into climate stuff at 17%. And the guy who can't think, walk, or otherwise carry on a conversation is at just below 60%. Now, that does warrant a debate. They do this, though. The DNC knows that their audience doesn't exactly care what happens as long as, a person representing a blue colored party gets into office. That's the thing about that. So when they screwed over Bernie Sanders in 2016, not that I like Bernie, nobody cared really, except for Bernie supporters, which then voted for Trump. Nobody cared when they screwed over Tulsi Gabbard, except for right wingers and some simps. And when they picked Kamala Harris as the vice president, even though she lost the very first she was knocked out of the competition in the very start, nobody really cared. So nobody really cares as long as what they perceive to be amazing gets into office. And apparently, even though we're supposed to hate old rich white men, the old rich white guy needs to stay in office for some reason, or else and he's let in record number of illegal immigrants. He's somehow added even more debt than was added on during COVID, and he's involved in a ridiculous war, and the prices are way up, energy way up. He cancels pipeline. He does all these things, and he's a rich old white guy who's been in politics for 600 years because he's a high-ranking elf. And some reason they say no, he's still good. He's still good, and we don't mind if we don't have any primaries or any debates. So that's what's happening. The DNC said they're not going to hold any debates. Joe Biden's good enough, and it's normal for the party to back the incumbent because he's already proven that he can win. But it's not normal to say, we're going to completely ignore everything. And if the Republicans did that too, then shame on them too. I believe debates were held for the Republican candidates who wanted to take down Trump in 2020. But I think maybe they just want everybody focused on the Trump DeSantis riff. But that didn't even happen when they announced this. They announced this as soon as Joe Biden said he's rerunning. They said, we're not hosting any debates. And you can say that it's stupid because it is, but they're also, really sticking together. Let's just say the flight log people stick together. And whoever that may be, not provable in court, hearsay, conjecture, Your Honor. I don't actually know anything. This was a comedy show. But James Vanderbeek made great points, and he sounds like he's a guy. He sounds like to me that he is a guy who went hard for the Democrats, maybe personally, maybe in his mind, and then he was like, well, let me start paying more attention to this because everything is horrible. And then he's like, wait a minute. Things are more horrible than I thought. They're just in a different way. I'm paying attention to this now, and Joe Biden can barely make it up the steps, but we can't have any competition for him. And even Carrie Ann Williamson, whose backyard's front yards lady, is getting 7%. It's time to start looking at the guy you've got in charge. There's this thing that they do in Canada where the losing parties never change their leaders. The NDP never changes their leader. They've got the same federal leader and they've got the same Alberta leader. They've both lost like 3 or 4 times now. They never change them. And that's because nobody actually pays attention. They don't know how many elections have gone by. I mean, these people don't know that Joe Biden's lost before. They probably don't know that he was vice president before. They probably don't know who Kennedy is. They definitely don't know who Marianne Williamson is. I barely do. And it doesn't really matter to them because are they going to be given this information that the DNC is not hosting any debates, are they being given this information on Snapchat or TikTok other than James Vanderbeek now? No, they're not. So when they're scrolling through and they're looking for, a guy dancing with his sister, or a girl dancing with her dad, or a guy doing streeters where he's asking women if they'll date him, when they're going through that, they're not going to see the information that Joe Biden doesn't have 40% of the support in their side, and they've canceled all debates because they don't want him to be exposed. They're not going to see it.
Turn it up, Georgia.